to this edition of All Killer, No Filler podcast, the first edition of our podcast, all about serial killers, from me, Rachel Fairburn, and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. First edition is about Jack the Ripper.
First things first, we feel like we need to do a disclaimer. All right, so we're both comedians, and we both like serial killers, but we don't find serial killers funny. That's the first thing to get out of the way.
I can just hear everyone switching on.
Yeah,
well, this isn't the podcast
I can hear my ass twitching,
Yeah.
and I've got headphones in. So basically, we're not laughing at anyone who's dead or been murdered. That's the first thing to get out of the way. But we do find them interesting.
Yes.
And we think a lot of other people do. So we thought we'd do a podcast about it. So I think, though, if you found this podcast because you've searched out something to do with murderers because, I don't know, you're in a sensitive way, or someone you know has been murdered or was a victim of a serial killer, then you know what, this is probably not going to be for you, because we are by nature quite irreverent people.
Irrelevant
That's
people.
fucking more accurate, to be honest. Thanks for listening, Dad. We are quite irreverent people, so that's just the way that makes me feel comfortable discussing this.
So, bye. Just say bye to the people who've decided not to. Oh yeah, in fact, the thing is, the reason we're doing this podcast is ultimately because we find serial killers interesting, and as long as me and Kiri are doing something productive like this, it stops us from writing to them.
Absolutely, yeah. So if you don't want me to get engaged to someone who's in Broadmoor, then keep listening. Okay, so we decided to do Jack the Ripper for the first one, even though neither of us like him.
Not interested in.
No.
I find him tedious.
Oh, he's boring, mate.
He is boring. But a lot of other people do like him. He's a popular serial killer.
I find it strange because, to me, the fascination of serial killers is when you find out who they are and sort of why they did it and what their lives were, but we'll never know any of the, like, oh, okay, so that's maybe why stuff, because we don't know who he is.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people find him interesting, but I do not. It's weird as well, isn't it? Because we were talking about this earlier, about how it's people, when you tell people, what do you find when we go, oh, I love serial killers, what do people say?
Oh, people go, oh, really? Oh, that's a bit weird.
Yeah. It's like being back in school again, isn't it? When they're like, you're weird.
The thing is as well, everyone is slightly interested in serial killers. I think everyone has I mean, Jack the Ripper, to me, there's a lot of people interested in him. Pretty much everyone knows about Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
To me, he is like the equivalent of the Beatles as a serial killer.
Absolutely,
That is the kind of...
Mary Kelly was his Sgt. Pepper's.
That's it. That's the feel you get of Jack the Ripper. Like you say, it's the not knowing.
Yeah.
It's the not knowing.
And we know it's a bit hacked doing this for our first episode, but I kind of feel like we just have to get him out of the way.
Yeah.
Because he's one of the most famous serial killers, and it's 100 odd years old, but it's still enduring, so people are still sort of fascinated by him. When you say to people, oh, I really like serial killers, they're like, that's odd. But the Jack the Ripper is one of the ones they'll weigh in on. There's some murders some serial killers that you can't talk about. People are just too sensitive, aren't they?
Oh, 100%. I mean, Moore's murders.
No-go area.
Especially in Manchester. Shipman. Not so much in Manchester, surrounding areas.
Really?
Yeah, I've done bits in my set about Shipman. I've just mentioned him. Not particularly interested in him. I think he was a bit of a tosser.
Oh, typical arrogant doctor.
Yeah, and his house was an absolute shit tip.
Channel
Shipman.
4 documentary there.
Yeah, I'm not really into him. Sort of, you get a bit of a feel when I've gigged out of Manchester. People are a bit, ooh, Shipman. I don't know if it's because I'm from Manchester and I've mentioned him and they think I should be a bit more upset.
Respectful. Maybe.
Respectful.
That's probably the word. Do you think something to do with, because Shipman was old people, Moore's murders were kids.
Yep.
The Ripper was prostitutes, and also the Yorkshire Ripper. Yeah,
it was prostitutes. And talking of serial killers that I feel you can make jokes about in your set and people will laugh along with, Yorkshire Ripper every time. And I think it is to do with...
Keith Carter got a character called Peter Sutcliffe, and Danny Sutcliffe obviously makes jokes about him in his set, and it's sort of fine. And it's weird, isn't it, that if it's to do with prostitutes, then it's always fair game, isn't it?
It's like prostitutes are not really seen as people, I don't think.
Yeah, or undeserving victims of murder, because I feel like the undertone there is like, the prostitutes is an occupational hazard, isn't it? It's like, yeah, but no one chooses to be a prostitute, really, do they? They're not like, no. I know I did great in my A-levels at maths or the sciences. I would quite like to go wander around in December in really skimpy clothes and probably be the victim of kind of sexual violence on a regular basis.
I've done really well at uni and I've got a world of opportunities, but the back of Piccadilly in Manchester is just where I need to be. Yeah, nobody is choosing to do that. And when it comes to vulnerability, prostitutes, without a doubt, are the top of that list, I think.
In Ipswich.
Yeah.
The undertone is like, oh, they had it coming, and it's like, no one deserves that.
No, nobody.
And especially not women who've, and men, who have been kind of forced into a situation through a lack of opportunity and education. Jack the Ripper's just weird to me, because I don't think there's any other serial killer that seems to be as almost popular in that there's ripperologists that dedicate their lives
Between playing computer games, reading comics.
Yeah, and getting those pillows which have got a picture of a woman on them.
Yeah.
They can pretend that they're their girlfriends. Waifus, they're called, I found out.
Yeah, between computer games and fancying the mothers. Let's try and solve the Ripper killings.
They're like the train spotters of the serial killer fans.
I find them so strange. There's not that much evidence to go off, really.
No.
We're talking about 5 killings over 2 months, over 100 years ago.
Or 11 or 7, we'll get onto that.
Oh,
later.
yeah, we'll come to that in a bit. But yeah, they're just very strange. I mean, it's fine, I mean, if that's what you enjoy doing.
Yeah, and they do tours still. They do tours of all the... I mean, some of the sites don't exist because that's the nature of bloody London, isn't it? That they've built over it and things, but they will do Ripper tours. And that, like, the thought of living near one of the Ripper murder sites just makes me feel just really uncomfortable. Just because, I mean, there's going to be Japanese tourists everywhere all the time, and it's going to be a nightmare living in your house.
I actually did think about going. Several times I've been to London, I thought, I'll go on the Ripper tour. The thing that puts me off most... It's not having to visit the sites of killings, it's the fact that there will be other people on the tour with you, and there will be American tourists who will be trying to claim some sort of ancestral link. Oh my God, wow. Jerry, I think my son Jerry, he claims that his grandfather, my father, was like the son of the Ripper. There'll be some kind of link. Oh yeah, my great-grandfather, he loved knives. I think he was the Ripper. He was from London. That is the thing that bugs me.
Yeah.
We'll get to the suspects in a bit, the Ripper suspects, but there's always a little bit of me that just, when Americans get involved with the Ripper thing, I'm like, oh, can you just stop thinking it's yours? Just try to get hold of
Not
something.
all the killings are yours, alright? You've got Thanksgiving.
Just be happy with that. Yeah, it just, I get a little bit of...
Does it rile you right up?
It gets me. Yeah, it gets me.
He's one of ours, isn't he? Yeah, it's really weird. I think the Jack the Ripper thing is, it seems to be people are sort of obsessed with the romance of like foggy Victorian London.
Oh yeah, I think that's where it's the romance of it, isn't it? It's the horses and the cats going up the street and the
Sherlock.
gin and singing, with the old Joanna in the tavern there. That's part of it, isn't it? People love it.
I did find there that apparently it's because a lot of people create fan fiction where there's crossover with Sherlock and Jack the Ripper, and also there's a big market in Japanese erotic horror based on Jack the Ripper.
Wow.
So I mean, good for them. There's nothing that they won't put tentacles on and fuck, is there?
This is very true. This is very true. And also, I did do a Google search, research purposes only. My stress, and there are Jack the Ripper porn films.
That's great. She was just a girl from the streets. He was an up-class gentleman with a top cat.
Oh, was he? We don't know.
Jack the Ripper was sort of responsible for reinvigorating the printed press because they managed to get the price of papers down, so it was quite a cheap, accessible thing, although no bastard could read back then. Everyone was following these Whitechapel murders, so to the point where when the police weren't releasing information, they were creating their own. Had such a strong link with the press, and it's almost a reverse of what happens now, in that they created a sort of Victorian gentleman out of him. It was more than likely some crazy homeless guy, but because the poor people were so badly treated, they created this figure as like a sort of a metaphor for how the upper classes were exploiting the working class people, and as Jack the Ripper. So that's when he wore the top hat and had a cloak as well. That was a bit taken.
And a cane as well.
Yeah, they cherry picked things from other stuff and just made this kind of crazy high-class guy. But I'm kind of glad that this all happened pre The Sun kind of pun-esque headlines. 4 beheadings and a funeral, Jack claims the 5th victim.
2 birds, 1 stone.
I like that because the double event. Was it Jew? Police find graffiti. That we'll get onto that later. If you don't know anything about Jack the Ripper, that'll sound like it's come from nowhere and it's anti-Semitic. Yeah, it'd be right.
No, there was... But it was always blame the Jews, wasn't it?
Classic, innit? It's not stopped all the way through.
Well, it's the bloody Jews, innit? That's the thing, yeah, the Jews, innit?
I think I've read stuff about... So there was the Whitechapel murders, of which there were sort of 11, and then others dotted around. Because the more I read about Jack the Ripper, the more I just thought, people were being horrifically murdered on a nightly basis, and the police just seemed to be like Chief Wiggum-esque, donut-munching idiots.
Well, when you consider it, there was something I was reading that before the Ripper murders, there was only, I think, a historian talking about it, there wasn't a lot of murder around in Victorian London. There was a lot of other crime, like petty crime, theft, stuff like that. There wasn't a lot of murder. So for 5 murders to take place in that short amount of time was shocking. There wasn't a lot of murder. So for all of a sudden, all these murders to take place, but that they're all prostitutes.
I'm on holiday.
Yeah.
Treat myself.
Yeah.
Because I think the more I read about it, I do think that... So there's... some people say it was 11, some people say it was 7, some people say it was 5. That's the widely believed, accepted story that they're known as the Canonical 5.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be confused with the Jackson 5, of course.
Of course not.
They have quite a lot in common, actually. All have shitty childhoods and no uteruses. Uteri? I'm not sure what the plural of it is. 5 victims and the 2 on the one night. The last person he killed is the most fascinating to me, is Mary Kelly.
Yep.
He stopped at Mary Kelly.
He did, of course.
Victim.
I mean, he went to town on that woman,
Oh my God, he
didn't
went
he?
berserk.
I don't... If you ever... Please be aware, if you ever Google these pictures and do look at... My God, it looks... It doesn't even look like a person. It's horrific what he did to that woman. But I actually think he got to Mary Kelly and he stopped because he achieved what he set out to do. He completely ruined that corpse. Put the heart out. He left the kidneys on the bedside table.
Heart was in a kettle, wasn't it, on the fire?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
One of the kidneys was, and a breast was propped up behind the head. He'd cut the... Sorry, we should have given a disclaimer before this. He'd cut her throat like he'd done with the other ones, but right through to the spine. He really went absolutely berserk on her.
Well, this is why I think he stopped after that, because he set out what he wanted to do. That was it. You know, he wanted to completely ruin a woman, and he did it. To me, it's a bit like when somebody sets out on, to do karate, something like that. You do it for a certain amount of time, you get your black belt. Done.
This is his swimming with dolphins.
This is
what
his
you're saying.
He's done it. He's got his
Mary
100
Kelly
meters.
is he's got his badge, sew that to his trunks. This is why I don't think he was a surgeon, because if you look at, and you do have to have a strong stomach to go out there and find it, if you look at the Mary Kelly picture, they're like, he worked with the skill of a surgeon. Like, are you kidding me? This man went berserk. Yeah, he was like basically like a load of knives attached to a bicycle wheel, just going into it. He went crazy. It's like there's nothing skillful about cutting a woman's face off. He went absolutely mad.
Well, this is the thing that people are saying, there's some skill involved, and then other people said, no, there's no skill involved. Some people thought, he was a doctor or a surgeon because they thought what he'd done was quite good, and then someone else was like, oh no, this is terrible, I think he worked in a slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. I mean, just the sort of conflicting theories about...
What do you think?
Well, I don't think there's any skill involved at all. I think if you decided you wanted to go out and murder a woman or a man or whatever, he'd cut the throats and and he'd cut the stomachs open. There's 2 things that you know for a fact. If you were going to kill somebody,
you can't see it, but she did a little motion, and I'm very aware I'm sat in her house at the moment. I suppose you only have to have a basic knowledge of human anatomy, like a basic knowledge of just humans to know that cut someone's throat, they're going to die, and
disembowel them, they're going to die.
And if you know anything about women, you know sort of where their fannies are and how, then therefore how to cut them out.
Yeah,
because he wasn't skillful surgeon like snipping. It was basically digging around like he's in TK Maxx, shoving everything in a red basket. The one that fascinates me is the double event, which sounds like it's a pay channel wrestling event, but it's the night, I think it was like the 30th of September or something like that, where he killed 2 in a very short space of time. Catherine Eddowes and Stride. He did those horrible murders, and he did 2 of them.
It's scary, but it's also like he must have been knackered to kill. I mean, I would imagine, having never killed anybody, and they never would.
That's there now. That's on record.
It's on record. I can get away with anything now, can't I? So if you kill one woman to get somebody to kill them and disembowel them, cut their throats, and then run off to do another one. Kiri, we've done 2 gigs in a night.
Yeah,
and that's tiring.
Doing the old double up
to
is
do
tough, isn't it? Yeah.
like 2.
He's got stamina, hasn't he?
Yeah, either he has or he wasn't working alone.
Oh yeah, there's that.
But yeah, you're going to be knackered. I mean, the absolute
no
effort.
rest for the wicked, hey?
Exactly.
Hey.
And just thinking of it now, so he kills one prostitute and then he runs across to wherever he goes to kill another one. How did he get the second one? Because surely he would have been covered head to toe in blood. She would have turned around, seen him, and
Yeah.
Oh, blimey, Governor.
Yeah, that's true. Unless he had... Because he was also known as Leather Apron, wasn't he?
Unless he popped his apron on.
Yeah, unless he probably went, I'll pop this apron on. Because they thought he was a butcher or something, so the Leather Apron was a... And it was so sad, apparently, because there was a guy, some Jewish butcher, just minding his own business, whose local nickname was Leather Apron, and then we're like, we found him! And it's like, no, yeah, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. The second victim, Stride, was seen with a guy that they thought there was the Ripper.
Oh.
At various points just before she was murdered. She was seen and 10 minutes later she was dead.
Well, that's the one where the next door neighbour or someone who lived in the same house heard her talking to him, and he was asking the question, will you do that?
Oh, really?
Yeah. We'll never know. Maybe what...
It's like the Meatloaf song.
Yeah.
I won't do that. Right, well, I'm going to cut your head off then.
Or maybe that's what she agreed to. So
yeah, that could be.
You know?
Yeah, like that cannibal in Germany who put it on like Gumtree and was like, anyone want to be eaten? And he found someone, didn't he?
Why not?
Yeah, but the thing is with Stride that they thought they were like, brilliant, we've got a positive identification of the Ripper, but every single person who saw her with the same guy, like, described him differently. One said he was fair-haired, one said he was tall, one said he was just short, one said that he was sort of swarthy looking and dark, and it reminds me of, like, you know, when the weird kid comes back from summer holidays and said he's got a girlfriend, and you're like, oh, what's she like? She's like, yeah, she's great, she's like blonde and really tall, and oh, she's taller than you, know, because you're quite short. No, she's not taller than me, she's like dead curvy with like dark hair and dark skin. I thought you just said she was blonde. Like, she's in my head, isn't she?
Yeah, sometimes she's blonde. Depends what films I've been watching.
Let's talk about the suspects. Because they're quite interesting. Now then, up to date, there is in excess of 100 suspects for who might have been Jack the Ripper. So the top one that's reared its head, and one of the reasons why we decided to do Jack the Ripper first, because he's in the news at the moment, is Kamiński, isn't he? Who is a Polish immigrant. He's recently said, because they had a book to sell, that they proved it was him, didn't they?
They said this. I just wish they'd leave it alone. What did they do? They extracted DNA from a prostitute's dress. Right.
And then traced it down the line.
His DNA was on there. It's a prostitute's dress. I'm pretty sure there would have been a lot of DNA.
Yeah, if you're gonna find DNA on anything, it would be a Victorian prostitute's dress. The only thing you could probably find more DNA on is a megabus gold.
No, I think as well, it's one of those things, you can pretty much say whatever you want. You can make all these, oh, it was him. You can say what you want now, because all these people are so long dead.
Yeah, it was Jill Dando.
It was Jill Dando.
But one of the reasons that they gave for him being a suspect is that he was a sexual deviant, and his reason for being a sexual deviant is that he was caught masturbating. Now then, if that's what we're using as like the barometer of being a sexual deviant, then I think, you know, we can all hold our hands up.
Just one.
Just one hand.
Just one.
Come on, we're all allowed one, aren't we? That's pretty tough, isn't it? That if someone's a wanker, then makes them a suspect in a massive high-profile murder case. That's not fair, is it? You know, Piers Morgan's on TV and he's a wanker. I don't think we should accuse someone
I think
of
as well,
murder.
the fact that somebody's, you know, knocking one out probably says to me they're less likely to be out killing prostitutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they've got stuff to do.
Keeping it all in, making it everyone else's fault.
Now, my favourite suspect, that's the wrong word to use, but I'm in there now. The person that I think it was most likely to be was a guy called Tumblety, who's got cracking line of facial hair. Tumblety. Yeah, he does sound like he hosts CBBC, doesn't he?
I kind of liked it.
Sign language with some puppets.
I think, because you mentioned him to me and I sort of read up about him, and I think it was him. I want it to be him because he's very jaunty, but I don't want it to be him because he's also American. I'm torn between the two, but everything adds up about him to me. Jars of uteri.
We don't know which one it is.
We don't know. In his study, apparently, when his male friends all came over, he would display these jars to them and very proudly tell them that they came from every class of woman.
Because I've got taxidermy and things like that in my house. That's quite an... I feel embarrassed sometimes when someone a bit nervous comes over and there's a dead pheasant making eye contact with him, but it's an icebreaker.
It is. We're both fond of taxidermy, skulls, that kind of thing. I've got quite a lot in my house as well. I think when you're keeping actual human remains in a pickled jar on the side, very specific female.
It is, isn't it? And also that's such a laddie boasting, like, oh, child, might have had one from every continent. Way.
Do you think he was like the Victorian dapper laugh?
He was rumoured to be a bisexual, so naturally evil in Victorian times. And he also hated prostitutes, but his reason for it was was a failed marriage to one. And he was also just a bit of a dull boy in that he was like, oh yeah, don't worry about me, I'm an Indian herb doctor, and would just make up that and was sort of big himself up, was an entrepreneur but also sort of a failure.
Yeah, just very confident in anything he did, I think, but bad at most things.
Classic serial killer.
Like
the arrogance of it. And now also there's some really far out kind of theories on serial killers generally, but with Jack the Ripper, because we don't know who did it, there's a Sherlock Holmes phrase, which is when you eliminate the impossible, only the improbable remains. And so some people have come to the theory that Prince Albert did it.
I'd like it to be Prince Albert.
Well, Queen Victoria got involved in the case. Let roll the sleeves, just point it out of the way, lads. She thought it was a cattle slaughterer, because everyone was speculating at the time. It was like the X Factor, like, oh my god, are they going to send Gamu back? Yeah. But it was like everyone was that's such an old reference.
Did Gamu ever actually go back?
This is the sad thing, is because she's a black girl, no one cares.
Nobody cares.
Like, it's like, those girls that are still missing. Bring up girls home, doesn't matter now.
Suddenly it was a hashtag for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is that still trending? Yeah, because they're all dead. Yeah, Queen Victoria thought he was a cattle slaughterer because everyone was sort of talking about it. Because one of the reasons they said, it was he had a relationship with one of the prostitutes, and that he had married them, and then all these prostitutes were killed were sort of people at the wedding. So they were offing sort of witnesses in a way, and that he was syphilitic and mad. But it was Victorian London. Everyone, like how everyone has an iPhone now, everyone had syphilis in their pocket. Back then, that's just the way things go.
It was just part of everyday life, syphilis, wasn't it? But I think, I'd love it to have been him.
It would be good.
I wouldn't be surprised because things are covered up so well.
Yeah.
With the royal family and everything. I mean, there's that rumour as well that in Glamis Castle in Scotland that there was a child born to a member of the royal family that was so badly deformed they used to keep it in a wing of the house.
Well, there was definitely 2 cousins of the Queen that were born with sort of learning difficulties that were just put in a home.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's true. And there's the rumbling debate that is Prince Harry's paternity.
Yeah, I think we all know.
If you can pretty much cover up the fact, and everyone's forgotten about it now, that of his 2 shitty A-levels that he got, the one that he got a B in his art history was done by his art history teacher. If we can just gloss over that, and she can get sacked for telling, it is sort of feasible that you could cover up the Prince region going berserk on prostitutes.
I mean, if you're covering up birth defects, which must happen all the time with them, considering the amount of inbreeding that goes on.
There's shallow gene pool in it.
Yeah, and it's got to be covered up. Like I was thinking, for example, but Jimmy Savile, right? That was covered up. We all knew, but that was pretty much glossed over, covered up. Nobody said anything. Nobody did anything. So, for example, if David Cameron and Prince William suddenly decided they were going to go out and murder prostitutes, I think it would go ahead. I don't think anyone would actually say anything.
No, well, I think David Cameron's killing enough disabled people with Atos, isn't he? That he's probably got his kicks that way.
Yeah, he's fine actually. Now you mention it, he's.
There was an interesting thing as well that because some graffiti appeared on the double event afterwards with a bloodied bit of apron that ended up belonging to I think it was to Edo's, that they ended up matching to her, and it had some graffiti above it, and it said the Jews and Jews was spelt wrong, and the Jews are not the men to be blamed for nothing, which is a double negative, isn't it? Which is terrible. But yeah, and then the police took a picture of it but then washed it off because they were worried that there would be anti-Semitic riots as a result, that basically we do what we do in history generally and blame the Jews. Just easier.
Just blame. I think there's so many suspects in the Ripper case, Jack the Ripper, because all the Jews were suspects, weren't they? Every Jew in London was a suspect, and every Victorian man.
Could be anyone.
In fact, if you dress as a Victorian gentleman in a modern day Britain, you are a Ripper suspect.
It was really interesting as well because there were these letters, because Jack the Ripper was not called Jack the Ripper. He sort of named himself. So you doubt the whole letter thing at all, don't you?
I completely doubt the letter thing. In every case, I'm always, is that right? No, I'm not having it. Jack the Ripper, right, if he was, as they thought, a man who knew the local area, who, could easily fit in, it's going to be some scrote, isn't there? There's going to be some East End scrote who's, had too much gin and hates women. He's probably going to be illiterate. Wouldn't be able to write. Most people lived in lodging houses, so they'd be sharing rooms with 50, 70, 80 other people a night. Some people didn't have enough money, they just pay a penny to lean on a rope. So you've got all these people in these rooms. When's he going to find time to write a letter? If he's trying
on a piece.
Yeah, like he's lying there. What do you do? I'm just trying to write my letters, mate. Give it a break. Like,
you keep it down. I'm trying to write my own bloody.
Yeah. Jack, move up. Your knives are sticking in there. There's no chance. And I think it was probably somebody... I mean, then again, if it was, somebody well off who the police knew about, somebody connected to royalty or, someone high up, then yeah, you can see. But I don't think that'd happen. I always think it's someone jumping on the bandwagon that, I want a bit of this.
Well, there was 4 letters, weren't there? There was the Dear Boss letter, there was the From Hell letter, the Saucy Jack postcard, which sounds like something you'd buy on the front of Blackpool, and the Openshaw letter, which is the one that contained a kidney. But it's so weird because as soon as they said, because basically they held off with these letters for a while, 2 of them were written in, I think, red. He said that he was going to use the woman's blood that he put in a ginger beer bottle, but the blood had gone too thick.
Excuses.
I know, yeah, and that classic, innit? Oh, so you know what it's like when you put it in a ginger beer bottle.
Just went all thick.
It's weird because as soon as they went, right, okay, we're going to risk it, and they put it in the papers to try and get people to come forward. Every Tom, Dick and illiterate Harry then was like, might as well write a letter. It became like a really popular thing in Victoria. Go, I think I'll pretend to be a serial killer for a bit. You know how when we were growing up it was like chain letters, and it's like, if you do send this on. In Victorian Britain it was obviously just really popular to pretend to be a murderer.
Well, I mean, it's something to do, isn't it?
They just didn't have telly, did they? And it was all sort of like gas lamps, so why not just bash out a letter?
Gas lamps and fountain pens.
But before these letters, Jack the Ripper didn't have a net. Well, he was called the Whitechapel Murderer. He was called the Red Fiend, which is the kind of like, there's sort of communist undertones to that, isn't it? It's the kind of thing that my dad would call just universities in general, anything that opens the mind and means that I meet black people. It was also known as Leather Apron, which I think is just wah, 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 isn't it? It's
a bit say what you see.
Yeah, it's a catchphrase.
Leather Apron.
And that was just because the Leather Apron was found sort of near one of them, wasn't it?
And that was good enough for them.
Yeah, but he named himself, he signed off one of them. I think it might have been the Dear Boss one where he called himself Jack the Ripper, and I just think that indicates to a certain arrogance that is prevalent in serial killers. There's a few that have named themselves.
BTK.
Yeah, the Zodiac Killer. He had his own symbol for fuck. It's like the artist formerly known as Leather Apron, formerly known as the Whitechapel Murderer. The Openshaw letter I find fascinating because he posted a kidney that they preserved in ethanol, and he posted it to, I think it was like the Neighbourhood Watcher then, who started getting really involved in the Jack the Ripper case of Whitechapel, and they posted it to him. It's a lot of, like, this is before obviously the Royal Mail was privatised, but like it's a lot of faff to post a kidney, in it. Like, oh, I know it's technically, it's only small, so it should go through as a normal, but it's quite wide, so I can't get it through the special thing that I've got here, so I'm gonna have to charge you for a large.
It's just, the thing is as well, I mean, the effort you'd have to go to do that, like you said, it cost a lot of money, probably to post in the old days, although I don't know, we should really look that up. Maybe it was cheap, we're not sure, but
it must have been cheap if everyone was writing those fake letters all the time. That's an expensive hobby, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got to have been cheap. And then the other thing is, I was thinking, did they really know it was a human kidney with a shawl?
Yeah, well, I think they had it for like 2 days, these people, and then it was either the Central Press or it was this Neighbourhood Watch group, and they took it to a mortuary and got a doctor to look at it, and he said, this is a kidney from a human, it's not a goat, which is what they thought it was. And then I don't think they believed him, so they took him to another one, like the guy from the mortuary, and said, right, okay. And he went, yeah, no, this is a kidney from a left-hand side. And the papers made up that it was from a woman of a certain age, but he did say this is a left-hand kidney.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing's a bit like, oh no, we don't believe you. You said it was goat, so I'm going to take it to someone else. And they take it to someone else, and it's, someone who knows what they're on about, and he's like, yeah, okay, it's a human kidney. It's a female kidney, and they're like, well, we're not sure, blah blah. But it was to get to the point, it would just be like, I think somebody would just snap eventually and go, yeah, well, I should know, it was me that posted it. I'll waste my time, am I?
I tell you what, you murdered a few prostitutes. Really put your effort in. You guys got to up your game. Do you think we'll ever know who did it?
No, I don't care. I'd rather leave it as, I want to leave it as a mystery, but it not be an American. And I don't hate Americans, but I just think you've had so many serial killers.
Yeah,
enjoy the ones you've got. Just leave this one alone.
I think my favourites are from all of them. If you could travel back in time, I'd love to be fascinating to find out who did it.
No, you can't start messing with time travel.
Right, okay.
It can't.
That's just a rule for the podcast.
You can't. No time travel. It's a rule for life. Right? Time travel shouldn't be allowed. Right, if I was going to time travel, it wouldn't be to Victorian London. It would be to the middle of summer 3 years ago. The reasons I'm not going to go into right now, but that's where I would go back to, and there'd be some changes going on. Let me tell you. But I don't know. I just hate this.
I suppose actually that's really that I've gone, oh what, I can travel back in time. I probably won't intercept Hitler in sort of like 30s Germany. I'll probably just go and find out who the Jack the Ripper was.
Yeah, hang on, we're starting a podcast. What's that? Where's my time machine? I'm just going to travel back to the East End of London.
I just think it would be great to know who he is, because you know all the fascinating, you know when you read about like Dharma and Nielsen and you get like, oh my god, and you find out these things in their childhood, and just even things like how their flat looked or whether they had a dog, and you get really, but we'll never have that payoff with Jack the Ripper because we'll never know who it is.
Yeah, in some ways, you know, it would be nice to know, but I think we should leave it. It's good for tourism.
Oh, they say that about the royal family, and they cost us a fucking fortune. But you know what? I'd rather have 10 Jack the Rippers wandering around than all those bloody sponges. Anyway, that's enough of me pushing my lefty propaganda. So, this has been the All Killa, No Filla podcast with Rachel Fairburn and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. That was Jack the Ripper. Have we decided what we're doing next week? Next time?
We've not decided yet.
Oh, that's exciting.
Maybe there'll be another serial killer, a brand new one that'll come out in the next week. So
that sounds like a threat. Rachel's going to go on a killing spree around Harper Hay. So thank you very much for listening. Please do tell people about this if you've enjoyed it. This has been All Killa, No Filler. Thanks very much.